Welcome to the What's Our Verdict podcast, where we fashion ourselves cinematic judge and jury. My name is JJ Carter. I'm here with my co-host, Mattson.
Better read than dead.
And Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
We appreciate you tuning in. Go ahead, hit that like, follow, subscribe button, that bell notification, all those cool buttons that let you know when we're releasing episodes and tell you to come watch or listen and all that fun stuff. And tell a friend about us because help us grow the podcast. We appreciate it. That's all. Let's move on and talk about movies. So we're here today to review Terminator 2.
JJ,
going old school.
Can I give a summary of this movie? Because this
Hold
is
on.
I'm going to let you do your thing, but I'm really excited to give my spiel on one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah, let me get through all the people.
The boring stuff.
And then I'll let you give I'll stop short of the synopsis.
Yes.
And you can give us a synopsis. So, this movie, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, released in 1991. It was directed by James Cameron. It was written by James Cameron and William Wisher. It stars Arnold Schwarzenegger, Linda Hamilton, Edward Furlong, Robert Patrick, Earl Bone, Joe Morton. I'm going to stop there, and I'm sure Alec has somebody that I should have included. No, I'm just kidding. That's pretty much it in this movie. So with that, take it away, Mattson.
Look, there's a lot of things Arnold Schwarzenegger did well and didn't do well, but there's one role that the man seemingly was born to play, Terminator. But what's confusing about Terminator 2, Terminator 1, I mean, the Schwartz, a.k.a. the original Terminator, a.k.a. just the scary human being, a.k.a. machine, came in and he was sent to wipe out John Connor. But then he comes back in number 2 and he's your friend. It's not the shotgun point of view. He's pointing it at another Terminator, which is super scary. And they always show up naked. I don't get it. So Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator is on the friendly side this time, trying to protect John Connor, the boy. And the mom, deranged mom, is freaking out because she was just tried to be killed by original Terminator. They're all on the same team. But then we get this cool liquid metal Terminator shapeshifter thing that likes to ride motorcycles, drives trucks like a badass, and teenager John Connor's just weird. He's got hormones, and he kind of likes this new Terminator, teaches him to be a human, to have feeling, and he's a little outdated, not as cool with the tech, but he has cool one-liners, and basically, long story short, they fight to the death, and old school Terminator, a.k.a. Arnold Schwarzenegger, wins, puts his thumb up as he is going into a fiery death of flames in one of the coolest death scenes that there is in cinematography, defeats super amazing liquid metal Terminator to the death, and John Connor is saved until things get convoluted in further Terminators because the timeline of all these things is confuzzling, to say the least. But Terminator 2 in and of itself, machine v machine and human, is a pretty awesome movie. Skynet, damn you, but you make a good movie.
That kind of went off the rails there.
It was all over the place because this movie is all over the place. But man, I love this movie.
All right. That was awesome, Mattson. I feel like it's going to end up a TikTok like your last rant.
Without a doubt.
I don't know if you've seen that one, but it was a great TikTok.
Before you keep going, JJ, I'm pausing because this movie also has amazing music by Brad Fiedel. Who the hell is that? But man, you found lightning in a bottle with Terminator.
It's true. So here's the actual synopsis. A cyborg identical to the one who failed to kill Sarah Connor must now protect her 10-year-old son, John, from a more advanced and powerful cyborg. That's how you do a streamline.
That's not exciting at all.
Yeah, they got to their point in 30 seconds.
Yeah, but that's not the point. My rants are meant to be more
you gotta hook them. You gotta hook them immediately, Matt.
Look, the short synopsis is you want to see old machine fight new liquid metal machine to save human annoying boy and psychotic mother. Watch this movie and this goes to the death, and it's great with good music.
Hey,
there you
man.
go, like 3 sentences.
I gotta call you out on your talking shit on Linda Hamilton, dude. Linda Hamilton is hot in this movie.
Well, she's just her character. She's obviously
She's a little nuts.
she's a little nutty in this movie, very understandingly so. But
I
at
like
times,
her.
at times she annoys me a little bit. But I get her.
Oh yeah, no. There is nothing cooler to me than at the end of this movie when she's freaking got the shotgun in one hand and her arms almost coming off, and she's like racking this son of a bitch with one hand and still shooting it. I'm like, yeah, she's badass. I like it.
So,
I love this movie.
I want to go to JJ here because JJ, our old timer.
Yep.
I don't know if this movie came out in '91 and you were what, like
10 years old.
10, so you probably didn't see it until maybe you did see it when it came out. I don't know if did you see it in theaters?
No, I saw it on my buddy's black box stolen HBO when it was released on HBO.
So what did you think of this movie? Because I'm sure you probably saw Terminator and then you saw this one. Maybe I don't know how that all worked, but I'm curious about whatever it was, 10, 12-year-old JJ and seeing Terminator 2.
Yeah, so something you young bucks don't remember is it used to take forever when a movie would come out in theater. It was at least a year before you would see it on video.
Jeez.
I mean, yeah, nowadays people are like, what? Because especially with COVID, we start seeing movies released same day streaming. And, even now the ones that aren't, they're released a couple of weeks later or a month at most, maybe a couple of months. And there was a time before COVID, you'd still see them hitting 6 months at the latest would be out in video, DVD, streaming, whatever. But when I was young, when I was a kid, when this came out, it hit theaters in 91. I'll bet you, and I'd have to Google it, but I'll bet you it didn't hit HBO TV until 92 sometime. At least a year later. I mean, it was a long time before you'd start seeing movies come out to watch at home. I remember I was 12 years old when I saw this, and I was at my buddy. I was at my buddy Lamar's house, and he had the black box, the little card that you stuck in that at the time you could get. If you knew a guy in the cable business, he'd give you a card that would give you access to everything, like everything. And so, but even now, like you have like 12 HBOs. You had one HBO back then. That was it. And so, and they would play the same like 6 movies on repeat. So it was just constant. And then, so we were watching this. I remember this movie, and I remember the other one that we used to watch all the time at his place was Predator, the original Predator movie. So a couple of Schwarzenegger movies. But yeah, so I do remember watching this. And I remember we watched Terminator. He had the VHS. For you young guys, that's basically the DVD that had like a roll of tape that ran through it. Yeah, that's how we used to have to, and it gets stuck and like you'd wear it out after you watch it a few times anyway. So we watched Terminator, the original one, which still to this day is one of the most terrifying movies to me. Like it's just so intense, the whole movie. It does not let up ever in Terminator 1. It's so intense. And then Terminator 2, we watched them back to back. And Terminator 2, it's probably, other than Godfather, to me, the first one I would think of when I think sequel that's as good or better than the original. I don't think Terminator 2 is better than the first one. I just think it's as good in a different way. Because to me, they're not nearly the same movie. The first one's so intense that it might as well be a horror, not a thriller movie. The second one has kind of like lays the groundwork for what Marvel did, only in an R-rated format, right? So when it's tense, God, it's tense, but there's some comedy rolled through there with the interaction between Edward Furlong and Arnold Schwarzenegger and the whole jokes and the one-liners. That was very much funny, and it loosened up some of that tension. So I thoroughly enjoy this movie. I remember watching it as a kid thinking this is nuts. And we were all afraid of technology because that was back when I had like an Apple II in my house. So, and we still had floppy disks. And I don't mean like the little hard plastic ones. I mean actual floppy disks with the hole in the middle. Somebody's watching this going, what the fuck is he talking about? I'm old. Shut up. Yeah, but I love this movie. I am old.
Alec, what about your thoughts? I obviously love this movie and can expound truthfulness and mythology and say stupid stuff about this movie all day because I love it. But where are you at?
It was good. I like
Had you
it.
seen this movie before, or was this your
Nope,
first?
this is the
Oh
first
my
time.
gosh.
I believe that about you.
Yeah, see, Mattson likes to rave about, Westworld being like this film and everything traces back to Skynet. When Mattson says Terminator 2, I say Metropolis. And I know JJ got that joke and Mattson did not.
Oh,
Nope, because I don't watch black and white films because they're
You
dead to
should.
me.
They're really good. Anyway, the thing that I really liked about this is their prediction on Judgment Day, right? August 2029. I'm sure in 1991 or, before then, that was a long time away. But now as we're getting closer, it's looking more and more like we're going to be experiencing Judgment Day in August of 2029. Like straight up.
Could be.
But I enjoyed it. It was a fun movie. I do think Schwarzenegger is overhyped. Like, if all it takes is to say a couple lines here and there and look scary in sunglasses, anybody could do that.
I don't know. I feel like he was like in a 80s, early 90s Keanu Reeves, though, in a lot of senses, where
Oh, yeah. But he plays a really good robot who has no human emotions.
Yeah.
Because he's a robot who has no human emotions.
I mean, I will say this. So when this came out, this one kind of changed him because in the first one, have you seen the first one, Alec?
Yeah, I watched it before this one.
Right, good call. The first one, like, he looked different. He was young bodybuilder Arnold, you know what I mean? And in the second one, he'd had some work done probably at that point. His jawline was a little more streamlined. And maybe he just took some weight off in the face. I don't know, but very different looking Arnold. And that's why the first one to me, like, he fit. I loved it because he didn't talk unless he had to, or he was talking as another character. And so for me, like that, but this movie is what triggered his career, in my opinion. The first one got him this one, but this one, because they could see that he could play the intense, frightening machine without emotion. But then he also, because I will give Arnold one thing throughout his career, what he can do is drop a one-liner. Like,
oh yeah,
he's very good at that. I could probably go through a handful of movies that I still to this day will quit. It's not a Tuma. I mean, are you kidding? Get to the chopper.
Get to the chopper.
Yeah, like there's so many lines.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Yeah,
I'll be back.
Come out of this man throughout his, and not just these, but out throughout his career. And this movie is what triggered his ability to people look at him and go, okay, he can be funny too.
Your foster parents are dead.
Yeah. Come with me if you want to live.
That had me in giggles.
Oh yeah, it's such a, yeah, it's so iconic, and I love him in this, and I really love him in the first one because he's like 3 lines in the whole movie.
But this is the second one, the interaction between him and John Connor and him teaching him how to be more human. They talk about crying, for instance, or do you feel pain, or the things that you can and can't say. But when he has the line like "Hasta la vista, baby," he says like "chill out, dickwad," and all those things, like teaching him those things. It's just funny to see like deadpan delivery, but then at the end, and that's really why I like this movie, because the way that the Terminator dies in this, Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator, it's pretty emotional moment at that point, because the machine grows and you can see the relationship with the boy, and then the Terminator sacrifices itself to make that possible, and then the emotional thumbs up. Like, for me, that scene is just, you wouldn't think at the beginning of the movie that you would feel that way about a Terminator, but at least I do towards the end. And I think it's a pretty emotional way to go down. And I think you could say other actors could do that. Certainly, they probably could, but I thought Schwarzenegger killed his role for what they asked him to do and what they needed. I mean, phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, and part of this one, too, and the reason he got some of the comedy lines is he did have some movies before this, because Terminator put him on the map, the original, in 1984. One of the greatest years for movies ever is 1984. And in Terminator, he did like a bunch of stuff after that, Commando, Predator, but they was always like the soldier, the killing machine. But then he happened upon Twins right before this with Danny DeVito. I don't know, you guys ever seen Twins?
Oh, I haven't, no.
Oh my God. Okay, I gotta add it to the list. Yeah, so he did Twins with Danny DeVito, where yes, the two of them are twins.
That just sounds like
I
the
know
biggest comedy film ever.
it's pretty damn funny, and that was in '88. And then he did so from then on, and then he did Kindergarten Cop in 1990. So they got to see the comedy in those two for sure. Even though they're not his best acting by any stretch. Not that he was ever a phenomenal actor when he had to talk, but but this movie to me is like the epitome of Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like when I think of best performances, I think of the first one, which doesn't necessarily count when it comes to acting because he didn't really have to do anything except look menacing and then say like 6 lines. And that was it. But this one, he actually had to do acting. And to your point, Mattson, like he actually made you feel something throughout this movie, like his connection with the kid. And then Edward Furlong, for all the shit that dude's been through throughout his life and the mistakes that he's made, he was enjoyable in this movie too because he made you feel for Schwarzenegger. To be honest, the acting between these two isn't really good. If you were to like examine this in a vacuum, like it's pretty bad acting, but it worked for what they were trying to do. So
yeah. What do you guys feel about the visuals? Because the CGI, it doesn't hold up in my opinion, but at the same time, I don't find it bothering me as much. But I'm curious, JJ, back in when you saw this, it had to be like cutting edge.
Oh yeah. Well, in 80, well, especially like the T1000, like the whole liquid metal thing was so freaking cool. And to me, like that's the crazy part is I watch movies now and I'm like, Terminator 2 did it better. You know what I mean? Like there's sometimes when I look back, and this is one of those movies where, and even in 84, when they did the original Terminator and they had the stop motion skeleton that with the metal that was walking through the fire and stuff. Like I think back on that and I go, look, James Cameron has always been a forerunner of technology in movies. Yeah. Like, I mean, as much as I don't enjoy what's the new, they're getting ready to do the second one, Avatar. I never bought into Avatar. I think it's an overbloated, stupid, retold story that we've seen a million times that just looked cool, but it looked cool.
Stunning.
Yeah, and it changed 3D forever. It made 3D instead of red and blue shitty glasses that everything looks the wrong color to, I mean, I just watched Thor Love and Thunder in 3D last week and I was like, this is dope. And it wouldn't happen if it weren't for Avatar. James Cameron is always, and I mean, as much as Titanic was Titanic, again, the technology that he used to film that was insane. So I can always trust James Cameron to do cool visual shit. And this was no exception. When he did the liquid metal, there was, and it's like when they freeze it, and they did everything that they could, right? Like they get metal bars stuck in it. They're blowing holes with shotguns. Like they blow it up with a rocket, that whole like weird fucking piece that's like hanging up and screaming. It was so fucking cool. And I remember when I was a kid, I thought that was the most terrifying thing, that you just could not stop this thing, right? Even when you thought you did, and the fire lights it up and it all starts to pull back together. The fact that they actually did that with practical effects, like the liquid coming back together, they did with mercury, which was the dumbest shit you could possibly do. But
yeah, it's so dumb like that, but you're like, damn, it looked good.
Yeah, it looks so cool because you can get mercury to pool with a magnet. It's fucking, but it's dangerous. That shit's so poisonous. But anyway, yeah, they actually did practical effects around the liquid metal coming back together. But yeah, I mean, it's visually stunning.
I still think even to this day. Today. Yeah, like
I do too.
It's just so funny how that sometimes works. Like it's almost, we always go back to Jurassic Park. Sometimes the more CGI you can insert, I don't know what it is, but it's not that much better than it even was like 30 years ago. And I don't quite understand that sometimes, because even you brought up Thor, and the practical effects like on Gore the God Butcher were great, but then some of the things around them as they were fighting, you're still just like, man, like why? Like why can't we just do a practical effect set? It's gonna look better than what I'm experiencing. And sometimes I wonder why movies, I feel like CGI is a blessing and also a big curse at this point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a money thing. Technically now, which is as odd as it can be to me, it's cheaper to do CGI.
Yeah.
Because you're technically you already have the technology in the computers. You're just paying somebody to actually do it. You just hire Industrial Light and Magic or Skywalker Sound or whoever these companies that do it. You just hire them and pay for it. Whereas makeup, you got to pay for the materials, you got to do, but there's something to be said for it. And I feel like some directors are starting to get back to that and making studios pay for some of that, because like you get like the Stranger Things, not to touch on this one again, but Vecna, the fact that they put him in a bodysuit, to me, the problem is when they're creating something out of nothing with CGI, that's when it starts to become a problem, because we're so trained to catch that because it doesn't look natural. When you start to have something that's practical blended with CGI, like Vecna, for example, he was all in that suit, but the stuff like the vines and stuff in his neck that were moving looked fantastic because it wasn't pure CGI. It was based in something practical and real. And that's what a lot of this was. With Terminator 2, everything that had to do with T-1000 had Robert Patrick as a stand-in, and they added these things around him, and then they built visual effects around that. So there's a practical aspect, and I think that's what we've gotten away from, because in modern technology, they say, oh, we can just create it from scratch and build it virtually in CGI. But you can always tell, because there's just this little bit of, unless it's an animated type thing where it's supposed to look a little animated, there's just a little bit of that realistic nature that goes away. You can just tell it's fake. So I think that's something that I hope that more directors get back into, is even if it's not full practical, add enough practical that you're just adding CGI to enhance instead of creating something from scratch. And this movie did that so well.
Yeah. The other aspect I wanted to touch on is, I mean, we've talked about music in other movies. Like I think of Jurassic Park. I think of sometimes Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter to an extent. But man, Terminator, the main theme of Terminator, like Star Wars, for instance, obviously the Terminators it's up there. Like it's for me one of I don't think it makes it into this podcast, but I start off the music. But man, it is so iconic. Like Brad Fiedel, who found lightning in a bottle, in my opinion, in that regard. And I really like the heavier metal. I don't know, like the drums, all of it. It feels so machine and grungy and things of that nature. And so well done in that regard. Such a good, strong theme throughout the movie.
Yeah, I agree completely. I still can't, like, I can hear like the do, and I just immediately look around like, where's the Terminator? Because it's just freaking cool, man. And the one thing about it is it added, so the same guy did the original Terminator. It was the same theme, that do, like that main theme was the same through both movies. In fact, I think they've used it through all the movies, but the same composer, Brad Fiedel, did the original one as well. But that whole sequence was like one of the very first like synthesized.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was one of the first to actually do a full synthesized score for a movie. So they kind of revolutionized it that way too, because it was full synthesization. So they used the fuck that word. They used a synthesizer. Do not put that on TikTok.
Synthesizer.
They used the synthesizer to make the entire score. So really cool.
That's cutting edge too. Well, it really worked. It definitely fit with the theme. The other thing I want to talk about this movie is one of the movie. I saw this movie when I was in second grade, or at least the first one I saw in second grade, and that would have been, what was I? Second graders,
7.
It was like, I think I was 8 because I was a little bit older, and that would have been what, like 99, and then I saw Terminator 2 like soon after that. But this movie, and having seen it many times since then, I really enjoyed Terminator for the world building that it created, and really getting me to think about. We talked about this in a previous podcast with Westworld. Like, I was joking, all things return to Skynet, but we live in this day and age of technology where we have IoT, Internet of Things, and they're becoming more smarter and smarter. I've got a robot that vacuums my house, and I mean, we've seen Transformers. I feel like Transformers it didn't start all of it, and there's earlier movies and things that have always been kind of pushing humans and machines. But man, like Terminator throughout the years has got me to think about like, what is tech gonna do, and just the fascination behind that. Really appreciated kind of the thought-provoking world it's taken me to sometimes to wonder what that will be like. And I think they did a good job showing the repercussions of what AI, machine learning could potentially be down the road.
For sure.
Get off the
There's
grid.
a lot of it.
Get
Off the grid.
Get off the grid is right.
Yeah. I'll tell you, when I was a kid, these two movies scared me. Now, to build on that, boy, they made some dumpster fire shit
man.
after this one.
Horrible.
I like to pretend that Terminator series ends with Terminator 2. Now, I've watched all of them because I can't help myself, but they're all steaming piles of shit after this movie. The first one and this one are fantastic. Outside of that, crap. Absolute crap.
It's hard to find movies that can. That's where directors in Hollywood needs to remember at some points. All good things are usually done after 2.
Yeah, that's true. Rarely do you get a third that's amazing. It happens, but it's very rare. But It didn't happen with the Terminator series. I mean, even the TV show, which was like lauded, the original TV show, that had Lena Headey and like it had some really good actors in it. I think it lasted like a season, maybe 2. A lot of people liked it, but it was better. I will give it that it was better than 3, 4, 5, all the way to 12 or however fucking many of them we have at this point. But it was okay, but it wasn't. The first 2 are just so good. So good. But yeah.
Well, what other story could you possibly tell is the problem, right? Money got in the way. Well, these two tell a great story that has a twist to it. Essentially, it's the same story, but there's that added twist, and it makes sense. Like, you have John Connor, who's the big head guy of the Resistance for the humans. Makes sense if you can send something back in time to kill him to do it. Try once, it doesn't work. Try again, doesn't work. Okay, find a new strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I want us to get Terminator 15 in basically old school Westworld fashion, like 19th century. While we're killing on John Connor's like great like grandmother, grandfather.
To be honest with you, I've often like thought like there's been conversations with some friends of mine where it's like, why wouldn't they go back to where there's absolutely no fucking way that you're gonna kill the Terminator? Like none. There's no way.
Because there's no technology.
Yeah. And in that grandfather paradox situation where all you got to do, it doesn't matter where in the freaking chain of babies you do it. It stops that chain, right? So I've often wondered why choose.
Things die in fire, burn him as a witch.
There you go. I mean, it only works until he's down to the full skeletal structure, and then he just walks around in the fire. So
maybe it's because JJ they don't have good enough genealogy records to know where to find these descendants, or what? That's not. Is that the right word? Or the
other way, ancestors.
Yeah, ancestors. Thank you, Alec. Appreciate that. That's probably what it is.
Could be.
It's not efficient enough.
It's fair. But you're still getting your ass kicked every time you go back. So you got to do something different. Oh, man. Yeah, even the last one, like where they brought Linda Hamilton back, like it was good to see Linda Hamilton in it again, but I didn't love it.
Yeah, I was like, I'm a sucker for Terminator, so it was just kind of like meh. But man, she's a badass in that one.
Sure. Now, don't get me wrong. It was better than the ones in between this one and that one.
Yeah.
Because James Cameron was involved and it had a different kind of storyline that, hey, we actually got John Connor, so spoilers. But it's like, so there's a big difference, but man, it was pretty bad. Pretty bad. Just like the rest. So all right. Should we rate it?
Alec has been rather mum on this movie. I feel like there's gonna be just a low rating here, but I'm waiting.
I took a backseat, Mattson, so you could really shine on your movie.
I won't.
I got in my Metropolis. I got in my Metropolis joke, and I am good.
I won't take a backseat on the next. I mean, I think we've outlawed all black and white movies from here on out, unless it's Dick Tracy or something, since they took a later movie and made it black and white. That's we can review Thor: Love and Thunder again years from now, since there's some black and white in it.
No, I think there's still a couple of them to make you watch, like Breakfast at Tiffany's, or you can watch that in color now. So
yeah,
I'm gonna be on PTO.
Dude, Breakfast at Tiffany's is such a great movie.
It's a great movie. Great movie. Sabrina, another great movie.
Oh my gosh.
Come on, dude. Guys and Dolls. Come on, dude.
Get some Errol Flynn in there. Do Captain Blood, Seahawks.
Do you see the color in black and white in the world? It's in color. It's not. We don't see. I can see green out my window. I can see blue, black, gray, yellow. I mean, let's experience the rainbow.
Hey, man, I'm all for it. But some of my favorite pictures that have ever been taken are in black and white.
JJ, you're telling me right now you're picking those movies over some of the other awesome colored movies that make you laugh or have action, and you prefer that. That can't be true.
Dude, you cannot.
You just broke it. You just froze, Alec. What a great moment to freeze.
Yeah, right.
You cannot what?
Top peak Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, you know, that's true. Like the Dictator. That's
The Great Dictator is
great.
Yeah,
The Great Dictator is an amazing movie. Here's the thing. So it's difficult for me, and we're way off topic here, but that's okay. It's difficult for me because to say that I prefer a black and white, I don't prefer certain types. It was really hard when Alec for TikTok asked, do I like comedies or action? Because it's tough. I prefer good movies, like movies that entertain me or make me think. Like, I don't care what genre they are per se. If I'm highly entertained, or if they make me think, or they make me laugh, whatever it is, like, I don't have a preference toward. And I'll tell you right now, a handful of those movies that I've told you, like Breakfast at Tiffany's, Sabrina, Guys and Dolls. There's another one I just can't think of. It's one of Casey's favorites. Like, black and white doesn't bother me because they're very good, very thought-provoking, very entertaining movies. And one thing I respect about old movies like that is they didn't have all the effects to fall back on. Like, you can have a shitty dialogue movie, but people are like, that was great because it was wild to watch, right? Like, so many crazy things. Like, but they didn't have that to fall back on. They had to act. They had to have dialogue. They had to have a story, or it wasn't going to work because there wasn't anything to rely on visually. I mean, let's be honest. What was the remake they did about old Grease? And what am I like with the Kraken and
Clash of Titans?
What? Yeah, Clash of the Titans. The effects were terrible. The owl in that was horrible. The Kraken looked terrible, but it was an entertaining movie. And so it got away with that kind of shit. So, yeah, there's my answer to that question. I don't prefer them, but I like good movies. And those are very good movies.
That's a fair answer.
I prefer them.
I know you do. All right, Alec. It's time for you to rate Terminator 2, my friend.
Time for me to rate Terminator 2. 3.5. You know, this is a very good movie. I didn't have really any problem with the CGI or the effects. Maybe it's because this is the first time I'm seeing it. And I'm looking at it through, okay, this was the 90s, but it was still really cool. And I think the liquid metal, like when he was taking shotgun blasts and how it splayed out, like that was dope.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cool. I mean, I'm not a huge Schwarzenegger fan, just in general, but I mean, it's funny, right? There's plenty of lines in here where you can the quotability is there and it's on point. I enjoyed it. It's got great story, good effects. It's got a prepper and the end of the world. That's right up my alley. So yeah, 3.5 out of 5. Definitely will watch it again.
Nice. Yeah, I thoroughly enjoy this movie. And I think part of it was because I love that I was able to see these movies, this one and the original, when they were new. Like, as a kid, like, it's one of my great memories. When people talk about the Terminator movies, like, I get really excited because I could tell you, because movies were they weren't a dime a dozen like they are today. Like, you had to prepare to watch a movie and you had to go to the theater or you had to wait a year plus. So I remember waiting when I was too young. There was no way I was getting into a theater at 10 to watch this movie. So I had to wait until it was on HBO with a friend of mine who had to steal his cable to get it. So the effort that it took to watch a movie like this when I was a kid makes them that much more memorable. Like sitting in my buddy Lamar's garage with his grandma who he lived with, coming out and asking us if we want popcorn. And like, I just remember all of it because it was so cool. So I think that's one of the things that I love about talking about movies like this when I was a kid, because it's such a different experience for me back then than it is for like my niece will talk. She doesn't get excited about movies because she can watch whatever the hell she wants whenever in 30 different ways. And so it's really interesting to me how that's changed. But I love this movie. I think it's great. I thought it was a great follow-up to an extremely intense movie that still let in with the intensity, but brought in some more of the human side, which is the difference between the two, right? So I really enjoyed it. I'm going to give it a 4.5. I think the only thing that keeps it from being perfect for me is the fact that to me, Terminator 1 is perfect. And it just doesn't quite, I think it's just as good in a different way. But I think Terminator, the original, did it so well being the first of what it was and how it changed that kind of technology narrative. I don't think anything will ever be quite as good as the technology attacks and as the original Terminator. But 4.5 for me. I'll watch this movie anytime anybody wants to make me or ask me to. It's great. Mattson, your movie, bring us home, buddy.
Yeah, it's going to be a 4.5 for me. The only reason I give it a 0.5 dog is John Connor's mother, just at times, having seen this movie so much, she just drives me a little crazy. Sometimes I'll just kind of pass through that because the rest of this movie, I mean, this movie is perfect besides those things. And if I was just rating this for seeing this movie one time, I probably would give this movie a 5. I wish, JJ, I could experience this not knowing anything and just go into a theater, even just Terminator 1. I'm sure it would be mind-blowing. It's like you bring up a good point about that I wanted to talk to your listeners about. It's the reason why Top Gun Maverick was so influential. It's the first movie I can think of in many, many years that people are like, you got to go see it in theaters. You got to experience, you got to feel the sound and everything like that. And I would imagine, as you were describing, JJ, even though you didn't get to see this in theaters per se, that's what movies were like back then. Even in the early 2000s, like going to see Star Wars when I did some of the earlier episodes. We don't really have that anymore, and I would like to think this movie would have just been exceptional on the big screen. It would have blown my mind apart, is what I think. And so I try to put myself in those shoes. And the first time I saw this movie, I'll never forget. Like you talk about, JJ, such an iconic thing. And all I have to hear is 3 notes, or just and you're like, yeah, Terminator, you just start freaking out. And really well done movie, exceptional music. I think Arnold Schwarzenegger, like you said, it put him on the map, but I really enjoyed, as I said earlier, how he makes you feel for his machine. Enjoyed the interaction between him and John Connor. Like you said, Jay, probably not the best acting ever, but in this movie, it works well enough. And then I just think the CGI, as we've talked about, still holds up. This movie has so much rewatchability. Like, I've seen this movie. You guys know me, I don't like to watch movies a ton of times, but I've seen this movie probably as many times as I've seen Braveheart. Probably like, I don't know, 8 to 10 times, which is for me watching a movie a lot. And every time I just freaking love this movie. I can come into this movie at the beginning, the middle, especially the end, and I'm glued to the screen. And I think that's the hallmark of a good movie. And I just appreciate the intense nature of this movie. The stakes are always high. I think in ways JJ's right. Maybe number 1 slightly does it better because it is more terrifying, like the Terminator crawling and like, oh my God, like it's crazy. But there isn't many other movies out there that the sequel is just as good as the original. This has got to be in a handful. Like maybe I could count to 5 if we did that, where this is on par with whatever those would be.
Yeah. Cool. There it is. Great movie. If you haven't seen it, I get excited when you guys, like Alec, hadn't seen these and you get to go watch them. It's always fun to be part of that. So this was cool. Mattson, tell everybody where they can find us.
Yeah. If you want to see, you've listened to this whole podcast, like we've already said, I'm sure there'll be a TikTok of me and my crazy random rant about machines and mothers and a teenage boy and a fight to the death. Come check us out on TikTok. You can listen to that, watch tigers. Not a real tiger, I should say. It's a stuffed animal. Or other weird things that Alec likes to put out there. Sometimes he combs his hair. He does have long hair, if you didn't know. If you watch us on our feed sometimes, he always has it in a bun. I think, Alec, for our listeners, how far does the hair go down? Oh, he's really froze.
He's froze.
He's like froze. Alec, how far does your hair actually go down? Oh, now
You're
he's
muted.
on mute. Oh,
Past my shoulder blades.
past the
Nice.
shoulder blades. I thought it was going to be longer than that. It looks really long. But check us out on social media sites as well to see what's upcoming. Whatsourverdict.com to see our current slate and what's coming in the month of August. I think we really only have one big movie in August that you guys listen to, Bullet Train, which looks pretty exciting. And then a lot of TV, and the TV shows that we're doing in August kind of escape me at the moment. I'm not sure, but a lot of TV show upcoming as well.
Definitely. Tune in. It'll be fun. As always, we appreciate you tuning in for this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Wait.
Cinemagic out.
Whoa!